Okay, I'm Bob Larson, cousin to these two on my left, Dave and John.
And I'm Dave Pearson, one of the Pearson brothers.
I'm John Pearson. I went along on the trip as a journalist and also as moral support for the two people who were deployed to Vietnam.
Well, the purpose of the trip was for Bob and I, who'd served in Vietnam in 1968 and 69, to go back and essentially see if there had been many changes in the country and in the terrain and how it felt to us after having not been there in more than 40 years.
Yeah.
Primary reason for the trip is for Bob and I, who served in Vietnam in 1968, 69, to go back, see the country, see the areas that we've served in, look at the changes and kind of measure it against changes in ourselves over this period.
You served 68, 69. I served 69, 70.
Fair enough.
But we overlapped.
We did. Yeah, and managed to see each other twice while we were in Vietnam.
Right.
Well, our trip started in Bangkok, but this picture is actually of our first leg in Vietnam in Hanoi, and this is the tour company that arranged all of the tour in Vietnam with our transportation, interpreters, lodging, and so on. These are the people that we dealt with for several months before arriving in Vietnam. Well, we started actually by landing in Bangkok, and this picture is of Carl and Helen Anderson. Carl is one of my former students and is actually almost a fourth son to my family. Also served as a lieutenant when I was a tank battalion commander. So we've known each other a long time. Carl has worked on and off in Bangkok for years, speaks fluent Thai, and they hosted us in the first leg of the trip, and also as we left Asia to come back to the States.
Well, that's just Carl's wife on the left, and I think that was a flight attendant that worked on Carl's plane, if I remember right.
Was.
It is.
Yeah.
We were at the Royal Palace in Bangkok, and this is a military parade in the morning through the grounds of the palace. This is a major pagoda on the grounds of the Royal Palace in Bangkok, typical of pagoda construction throughout Asia. This is the Golden Buddha, which is one of the most sacred images in Thai Buddhism, and this is actually an illegal shot. If they catch you taking a picture inside, they confiscate your camera or make you delete the image. And we actually all took several shots of this, and they couldn't find us all to delete them all. So,
Was that actually the emerald? It was an emerald Buddha, which the king would go in and dress each year.
I believe that's correct. This is also on the grounds of the Grand Palace, and that's the four travelers. Carl actually flew into Vietnam and met us once we had arrived. He came a couple of days late.
These are more grounds of the palace, and it's very interesting to see the different statues and the amazing work that's been done. There's lots of money of Thailand throughout this whole palace. That's lots of gold and brass and tremendously sacred to the people of Thailand.
This is typical inexpensive transportation in Bangkok proper. Tricycle, motorcycle basically, and that's how the normal folks get around.
And very chaotic.
A former minister of health in Thailand was concerned about the production of illegal drugs and also concerned about AIDS. And he began a campaign where he went to speak at villages all around Thailand. Well, here we're at the University of Hanoi in Hanoi, and it's the oldest university in Vietnam. And it happened that there was a graduation there and also a couple of weddings on the grounds. This is one of the women who was dressed in her traditional Vietnamese dress called an ao dai. If you want to get your bell rung, this is the place to do it.
This is part of the university, and the grounds were just absolutely beautiful. The landscaping and of course the people. And these are photographs of some of the the people that were part of the weddings and so forth on those grounds. And it was depicted a lot of their culture and their cultural dress, which is
This is a bride. Almost the same, not a wedding bride.
Yeah, the same
Some kind
thing,
of white shirt.
graduation.
I think they were a combination of high school and college graduations, and those are graduate students.
That's the restaurant we ate at in Bangkok, isn't it? As breakfast.
Yep,
Was that breakfast we had?
that was.
I didn't eat much of
You
it.
had questions about what it really was, Bob. What it was.
I didn't eat much. Either did you.
I was wondering who we were eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the markets, which we'll see right there, is that's why Bob didn't eat much breakfast right there.
I just remembered I didn't like the food and it was dirty. All those restaurants were dirty, I thought.
The man in the blue shirt in the center is a Thai four-star general named General Pyrot, a man I met on a couple of occasion of a couple of business trips to Bangkok back in the 1980s. A good friend of Carl's, and Pyrot and his wife and his staff and his family sponsored us for a dinner one evening in Bangkok.
And I drank liquor out of his private stock.
Yes, you did.
You did. You did.
Now, this is out of sequence because we've had Vietnam pictures and now we're back in Bangkok again.
Yeah.
And here's General Pyrot speaking with. Incidentally, he just retired last week.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. You're a
Wonderful.
very nice man.
He was gracious, and it was along one of the major rivers in Thailand, and the setting was open air, and he was a gracious host for us.
Transportation on the river. Picture taken from the place where we had dinner.
Those are longboat fishing vessels.
Now we're back in Vietnam.
This is actually in Hue.
Is it way?
This is Hue, and this is Hue as well. We're at the grounds of the Imperial Palace, the old traditional seat of government of Vietnam. These are character actors playing as though they were the palace guard in their morning guard mount.
Yeah.
It's again in the Citadel. This is incidentally where the Vietnamese took over, the Viet Cong took over in 1968 during the Tet Offensive and held the Citadel grounds. And the Marines went in and finally had to kick their asses out. This is more on the palace, within the Citadel at Hue, the Imperial Palace grounds.
In that pond were quite a few koi fish that would be fed. They were just all over in those ponds.
This is the airport in Hanoi where we landed. A good bit.
Yeah. That was
The Bangkok airport.
Yeah,
was it Bangkok?
traditional
Yep.
dragon statues at the Bangkok
This
airport.
is your important one, David.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this the guy in the blue shirt here turns out to be a retired colonel in the North Vietnamese Army, and one of our goals on the trip was to meet an enemy soldier. We stumbled across him in the first morning in Hanoi on our tour, and it turns out that not only was he an enemy soldier, he was located across the DMZ from me during my time up in the DMZ with the 3rd Marine Division. He was there before I got there and after I left, and it turns out that not only was he an enemy soldier, he was my enemy soldier.
I think in the background there's a little pond or a lake. Yeah,
Right
there it
there.
is with the
Yep.
wreckage of,
B-52 undercarriage.
yep. And
It's from the
that,
Christmas bombings in 1972.
they never moved that.
And here we are at the B-52 Museum
That's right.
in Hanoi. They had some sort of a cultural tour lined up for us. We were going to go look at the 150 native tribes that comprise Vietnam, and we just said, bullshit. We want to see something that's worthwhile. We want to go to a military museum, and this is not on the standard tour for Americans, but this is a museum dedicated to the success of the North Vietnamese Army against us, and especially to the campaign where we tried to bomb the stuffings out of them at Christmas 1972 to force them to the negotiating table, and they shot down a couple of B-52s. In fact, there's a B-52 undercarriage, or a complete B-52 on the grounds of this museum. This is their triumph over us. And there is the B-52. Vietnamese Bay Nam Bui Hai. There's the surface-to-air missiles they were using to shoot at us. They claimed, I think, knocking down about 36 B-52s. We lost 3.
I don't think they shot down 36.
This is typical of your AT&T wiring.
This is why your phone call doesn't go through.
Right.
Or go someplace you don't expect it to go.
This is the prison that John McCain was a prisoner in for the period of time that he was there. Inside of there is his flight suit that hangs on the wall, and we had a real sobering trip through the prison. It's now a museum, is no longer a prison, but that's where John McCain was for the period of time that he was a capture.
And most of the other prisoners.
Yes, and the other prisoners that were there. Centrally located in Hanoi, so that we wouldn't bomb it, because we would certainly kill our own people.
In fact, in French, it says Central House.
This was a tribute, I think, to how well the North Vietnamese treated our prisoners. There was so much
Supposedly.
propaganda in there,
Oh, yeah.
and it was,
This is the pond or the lake where John McCain actually landed when his plane was shot down over Hanoi, and this statue marks his capture by the North Vietnamese.
Sure, take it away.
George.
Well, this is west of Cam Lo, the district headquarters that I served in for some 7 months, and the folks with me in that picture are our DMZ area guide, and what was the name of our interpreter?
I can't recall, but he was wonderful.
He was great. Yeah. So those were our 2 guides. The guy in the white shirt was with us for about 5 days, 6 days. She
Yeah.
was with us for that 1 day. I got an email from her about a week ago.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
I think she liked you.
She did. Still does. This is a Georgia Air National Guard C-130. That was probably captured on the ground at some point because it's undamaged. And it turns out that a friend of Carl Anderson's and mine is the former commander of the Georgia Air National Guard, a 2-star general. And we took the picture of this C-130 with its Georgia tail numbers on it, and emailed it to him, or text messaged it to him with the question, looking for something.
I didn't realize he did that.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yes.
And within about 5 minutes, we got a text message back from Scotty saying, "So that's where the hell it went."
And that was at Quezon,
What
where
was it, Quezon?
Yeah.
this is.
This was in the Quezon Museum, and marks the Marines' defense of Quezon. 326.
Oh, she was fun.
She was. She was our tour guide on our trip to Ha Long Bay.
Yep.
And here's a picture of a boat similar to the one we stayed on.
That was the one we stayed
Was
on,
it?
I think. I believe
Could have
it
been.
was,
I
yeah.
don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, she called us the Three Musketeers.
She did. The guy in the background is Tom Linsmeyer, who we met on the boat in Ha Long Bay in Vietnam. Invited him to join us because he was by himself. And as it turns out, he spent 6 months a year in Hanoi and the other 6 months at his home in St. Paul, Minnesota, about 5 blocks from where I live.
Interesting guy. Can we still see him and talk to
I
him?
had coffee with him Friday morning,
Oh, this last Friday?
last Friday. These are the traditional features of Ha Long Bay. This is one of the UN 7 Wonders of the World historic sites, and it's these formations all through the Bay Area, rock formations that make it as famous as it is. This is a floating village in the Bay Area. Actually, people live there, and it's a cultural site run by the Vietnamese government. So I'm turning out to be the narrator.
There's the
You're doing a good job.
picture that I took from in that bay that opens up into the South China Sea. South China Sea has been on the news a lot lately with building some. The Chinese have been building some sites and so forth on the islands out in the South China Sea, but that goes out into the South China Sea.
So,
Yep, more of the same fishing villages.
junk. A lot of pictures of that fishing village.
Yeah, it was interesting, I thought.
And here's the 4 of us. We're at that historical site where the skit was on, and we went into that old
Cham ruins.
right old Cham ruins.
It's Carl.
That's in a bomb crater that was created from the Vietnam War. You'll see the next picture will show you that it has marked it as a bomb crater.
This is at the Ling Mu Pagoda in Hue, which is one of the most famous pagodas throughout Southeast Asia and certainly in Vietnam proper.
You're a wonderful narrator.
I think. This is the tomb of the second to the last emperor of Vietnam, Khai Dinh, who died in 1917. This tomb was constructed before he died, and is one of the most famous historical sites in Vietnam. These soldiers are there to protect him in his afterlife.
I remember those like the terracotta soldiers in China. That this seems to be their resemblance of that.
I'd actually visited this same tomb in 1969 and met his wife, who was still living at the tomb at that time. She'd married him when she was about 17 and stayed there, living essentially on donations of people who came to visit.
This is the kind of transportation that we saw all throughout both Thailand and also in Vietnam. It's they're marketing floral makeups and so forth, and you're going to see continuous bicycle and motorcycle transportation, which is really big. Bob will relate to that a little later on when we see some of the tremendous motorcycles.
This is actually in Cam Lo, close to where I lived. And when I was there in 1968, 69, this was a small little shack where you could get a cup of tea and maybe a sausage. And what's there now, it looks like a super America.
Again, one of their main modes of transportation were motorbikes and bicycles, and they use those as we do, little trucks and so forth for transporting.
That hasn't changed very much.
Vendors, street vendors.
The ungodly traffic.
Bob remembers very well that he was like a deer in the headlights, got caught in the middle of Hanoi one evening, and Bob couldn't move forward and so forth because there were thousands of motorcycles around him, and finally made it to the curb.
Coming from every which way, and you were sitting on the other side laughing.
Unbelievable.
I was paralyzed with fear.
Yeah, unbelievable.
My favorite pig truck.
This is Dave's.
Yep.
We had to sit here for an hour while you took pictures
That's
of
right.
pigs.
Pig's asses. There's no refrigeration available for moving. There's my favorite pig butt right there. moving transportation across the country, or moving pigs across the country refrigerated, so they move them live. And they got these multi-layer pig trucks.
The old parts of most of the cities and so forth, this is what you see along the streets. We asked a question, what's the unemployment rate? And our guide said 0. If you want to eat, you got to work. We think that's a pretty good representation of how things should really be. We could learn a lot from them.
54% of the population in Vietnam, the adult population, runs a business of some kind. When Bob and I left Vietnam in 1969-70, the population of Vietnam was about 19 million. The population is now 90 million.
The country had been taken over by the communists, and we see the flags of one flag, communist flag, throughout. The flag flies very, very openly wherever we are.
It's kind of like any other country.
Yep.
But they still practice capitalism.
Yes.
Well, they call it communism, they just practice capitalism, that's right.
Yeah, they do it better than we do.
Tell them about this one, where we are.
We're in the Hai Van Pass, which is the major divider between North and South Vietnam traditionally, not the DMZ, which is a couple of provinces further north. This is a major physical feature. The country actually has been divided for 700 of the last 1,000 years. We went through there on bus, did we?
Us, yeah.
Yeah, little van.
Little
We had a
van.
little van.
And at the top of the pass, there was a stopping place for a market, and also there were some bunkers where the French had tried to defend that back in the 50s against the Viet Minh, and there was a couple on top of one of the bunkers having their wedding pictures taken.
That's where I almost got pushed over the mountain
Yes,
from aggressive vendors.
Backed over, straight off the side.
I finally had to buy something from them.
This is a sign for a major Vietnamese Communist Party convention, which is coming up in December of 2015.
This is on the coast, on the way down the coast, and that's the South China Sea behind us. We stopped and had lunch there.
Where was that exactly?
North of the Hai Van Pass.
Okay.
Just
You
north
just said
of
that,
the
yes.
pass.
It was a nice restaurant.
Very nice. Beautiful beaches.
Oh, that's, you guys, is that the puppet show you went to?
The puppet show.
Yeah.
This was a traditional puppet show that was woven into our trip.
That's the worst hour of the trip.
Yeah.
I stayed away from it.
This is the bridge in.
It wasn't the worst hour of the trip, it was the second after the hour I had diarrhea.
Yeah. This is the bridge in. This is the one that you wanted to see. Very modern
Yeah,
cities.
this is in Da Nang,
Da Nang.
and this is the Dragon Bridge. The dragon is the traditional symbol of Vietnam. This has been constructed since I was there. I spent the last 5 months of my tour of duty in the city of Da Nang.
The thing that I'm hearing from you guys was that Vietnam is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and some of those cities look like Chicago. I mean, they're beautifully high rises.
Without the corruption.
Yeah, without the corruption. Here, no, out without the corruption, right?
That's on the boat, I think.
It is.
Yes.
Little food
In
carving.
Ha Long.
Artists all over the world, and these are. There's a Coke can with the.
Communist Party symbol on it.
Right.
Rice paddy.
Yeah.
Traditional dress that we see throughout the countryside, and rice paddies and lots of water buffalo.
This was in Quy Nhon, no?
Quy Nhon,
Yeah.
Seaside Bar. And this was in November, and this was in the hotel in Saigon on the way home.
You know, when we saw a sign, I couldn't get a picture of it, but there was a sign that said Open Black Friday, and it was really surprising to us that we would see that in one of the cities. And I think we saw it in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. Bob?
Oh, this is Hawk Hill, which is now a bamboo farm, is my understanding, wasn't? Didn't I
Rubber
say
tree.
that? I thought they said bamboo.
Might be.
But at any rate, that was our old fire base that when we came out of the field for 2-3 days, we would
right.
go back there.
That's where I landed with the chopper and saw you the first time I was there.
Yeah. Yep. And Highway 1 runs right next to the fire base, and at that time it was just a gravel road, 2-lane gravel road. Now it's a 4-lane highway. But here we are, where I'm with the guide. I'm showing him pictures of some soda girls that I took when they were 11, 12 years old, and they lived in that village. And I was hoping to see if they were around, which 2 of them were.
This is actually up by the DMZ. It's a rubber plantation.
I don't get it.
Donald Trump will help you. He's an expert in that area.
Now, let's not get political.
Yeah. These are monks.
It's
We're
still Hawk Hill. And John suggested, and I did it, I took some dirt home from that, which I'm glad I did. I don't know what I'll ever do with it, but I've got it.
Piece of the rock.
Yep.
I don't know if I told you guys. Oh,
Here we go.
Oh.
yeah, this is yours.
Here's,
Remind me
that's
of
the 2 gals sitting on the couch are 2 of the 4 soda girls that I knew back in 69, 70. The one gal sitting in the back is the daughter, and she actually owns that house of one of them. And the other 2, they would not tell me what happened to them. They said one died, and I think I know who that was, and the other one got married and moved a long, long ways away, and they wouldn't say which was which. But during the conversation with those 2 gals, here comes this guy in the white T-shirt, and his nickname was Tommy, and he still lives in the village, but he came in kind of brash, and he said, "Hi, I'm Tommy," and bingo. The minute he said that, I thought it couldn't be. So I started asking him questions, and he answered them all correctly. He said, "Give me $1," which I didn't have $1. I gave him 4 quarters that John gave me, and he looked at it and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's 4 quarters," and he said, "No, I want paper." So I give him $1 bill, and I said, "Now give me the 4 quarters back." And he said, "No, I keep for souvenir." And he hadn't changed. We were always giving him money. But anyways, he was 13 when I got to know him and other guys in the company. He ended up fighting with us. His mom and dad were killed. Their throats were slashed by the NVA in the middle of the night. He survived, and he wanted to fight and get revenge. And he turned out to be a pretty good fighter. But I was shocked that I saw him.
That's 46 years later that you run into people that you knew
Yeah.
from over there is amazing.
Yeah, and then he gave me his cell phone number,
Yes.
which I still have, and I said, I'll call you. I'll call collect. And he said, no, no collect. I said, boy, you still are a tightwad. But I have not called him. I probably should. This was at French
There's the bunker up overlooking the DMZ.
in the rubber plantation,
Yeah.
I think.
That's our DMZ guide. Go to.
Yeah.
This is at My Lai Village where the 1968 massacre occurred.
Yes.
This is now a historical and memorial site.
Very eye-opening for all of us.
We went through that village, our company, one time, and it was a little over a year after My Lai, and we had to unload our weapons when we walked through there, and we were in a search and destroy. I thought, why are we on a search and destroy and walking through this with no ammunition? But we
Pretty
did it.
unnerving.
We did it one time. We flew in there, and it flew us out. And to this day, I don't know what the purpose of that was for.
This is an entrance to the underground tunnels. There were tunnels all over Vietnam, and we had an opportunity to get down in those tunnels, and there's many tales and so forth about those tunnels, and they were treacherous during the war. They were there long before the Vietnam War started with the Americans, and it was a tunnel structure that a lot of the Americans didn't even know were there until they found them.
It's just north of the DMZ.
I think a lot of those tunnels existed during the French War too.
I think that's correct.
This is the air conditioning for those tunnels. That's where they got air down into the tunnels, so that the people that lived in there, those you can see what the tunnels were. These were fairly tall ones. There were a lot of them that were a lot narrower than that. They went for miles and miles underground.
Well, they had hospitals down there. They had small villages, from what I
Yes.
understood, where people were born and raised, and never saw the light of day for a long time.
Da Nang Air Base.
Yep, this is the Da Nang Air Base. Used to go out there and get lunch and drinks at the Da Nang Officers Open Mess, which if you look at the abbreviation of the name is the Doom Club.
Doom Club. Yeah.
They had the plaques of all of the units that were stationed there with their mottos underneath, and one of them was I think it was the 128th Special Operations Squadron. They were a defoliation outfit,
Yeah.
and their motto was, "Remember, only we can prevent forests."
This is their
This is-
Arlington National Cemetery.
Well, so this is
Similar.
This is a military cemetery,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which there are many across Vietnam.
Right.
We wanted to stop and honor our enemies, so we visited one of the military cemeteries.
I was surprised how nice it was and well kept, and
Well, that's an indication of how strong the power of the military is in
Yeah.
Vietnam. That they get that kind of money to do that.
These are the streets of Saigon and Ho Chi Minh City, which is known as today. This is night shopping and
Only
so
by the
forth.
communists.
Yes,
You know, I was surprised because a lot of people, natives, still called it Saigon.
Yes,
Oh, sure.
yes.
Versus, oh boy, I dread this one coming
This
up.
is Bob's first meal in 2 weeks.
I made him stop at Burger
He
King.
craved for Burger King. He craved for Burger King. He was tired of the noodles and the chicken. So you'll find that King Bob comes up in the next photo here, and we made sure that we took good care of him at Burger King.
Yes, we did.
I'm glad that we went. It put some things to bed for me, as I think it did for you, David. John was there he thought would pick up the pieces, but the pieces never
Needed to be picked up.
needed to be picked up. But it was, I think, good for both of us emotionally and mentally. I was interested in seeing how the country had progressed, and I was glad to see the progression that they've made. I think it's still a third world country in a lot of respects.
Yeah, what we left was devastation. What we came back to was
A lot of progress.
progress and a lot of hope and
Yeah.
optimism.
Yep.
That was a real education for me to go back with two people who had been deployed there and gone through some very difficult times, and able to see each other twice in in a war zone was pretty spectacular. But also to connect with people who had fought the war on the other side, and also to connect with people that you knew from 46 years earlier. There were some things that came out of this trip that we'll certainly remember very, very well, and it was a great education for me to be back with two relatives who are real close to me and so forth, and able to observe from their eyes their situation and what it is today. But it was a wonderful trip.
Well, and I got to be a captain for 4 days in Da Nang, which was,
Don't let that go to your
I
head.
don't want to get Dave in trouble, but when I visited him there, and I won't go into the story how I got the clothes, but I wore his fatigues for 4 days, which had captain bars on it, and everybody was saluting me, and I was going, as you were, and at the time I was a corporal. And I kept thinking, and I told Dave, I said, if we get busted, I've got nothing to lose. They're gonna send me back out in the field anyway, and I'm already a private or whatever it was. But you're gonna be out of the army, or you're gonna be in Long Bend. So, but that was one of of my whole tour. That was a highlight. I went back to my unit out in the field, and I went up to the captain, and I said, "I'm your equal now."
Oh, man.
That was one of our better events, wasn't it?
It was. It was a lot of fun. I just got a kick out of going into the officers' club. We'd go in for pizza and a beer after you got off work. And
Floor show. And
yeah, second and first lieutenants were, as you were, carry on. So I like that.
too bad we don't have a picture of that. We don't have a picture of that.
I don't
Wish
think
the
we
hell
do.
had.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
We both had Instamatic cameras that I could take.
Right.